Good morning, rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're finally here. Sorry we're late. We're 5 minutes late for work. I mean, come on, it happens, right? Thanks so much for tuning into the show today. We're grateful to have you here. If you're a regular watcher of the show, you know what to do. Make sure you smash that like button. The earlier you do it, the sooner you do it, the easier it is for us to get out into other people's feeds this morning so we can continue to grow the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. I decided to stream the show in 3D this morning, I guess, apparently. That's why we're running a little bit late. Let's just hit the buttons. That's Monday for you. But we're glad to have you here, and we're ready to roll right now. The shooting in Texas has sparked a debate again about the meaning of the Second Amendment. We're going to talk about the events that occurred over the weekend with multiple people, unfortunately, who were killed by a man who the Wall Street Journal is blaming committed the deed on white supremacy. You'll find it very fascinating considering the last name of the man who committed this tragic event. We'll talk about that here in just a few minutes, and I'll be sharing some of the details that we know on this currently unfolding story. After that, at 7:23 this morning, brutal polls at the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post for Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Yes, a new national poll has caused even George Stephanopoulos at ABC News to come out and say this is brutal for Biden. And you know, Stephanopoulos loves him some Democrats. He did work for former President Bill Clinton to help him get elected. So, you know, he doesn't like seeing these kinds of numbers and doesn't want to have to say it on air. But he did. He had to. It's a legit poll. It doesn't look good for Uncle Joe. We'll talk about that at 7:18. And then in other presidential news, the Kanye West presidential campaign had a little bit of a news story over the weekend. Did you see this? Maybe you didn't. You were probably doing something more important. But the news is that apparently Nick Fuentes has been fired by Kanye West. Aww. I know. It's no longer the Black Nazi campaign because Milo Yiannopoulos is back. So it's no longer the Black Nazi campaign. It's now the gay black campaign. It's don't panic. The Nazis are gone, but the gays are back. When it was Milo and it was Nick Fuentes and Kanye West, it was gay black Nazis for president. Then when Milo Yiannopoulos got fired, it was black Nazis for president. And now Milo's back, Fuentes is out. So it's just gay blacks for president, which I'm pretty sure gay blacks is totally politically correct. So everything should be fine, right? Thank you for laughing, studio audience. We appreciate that. At 7:30 this morning, a crisis of confidence. What's happening with the banks in this country? We are in an investor crisis of confidence, says my guest, John Miltimore. He's going to be joining us this morning. He says that the new Federal Reserve report holds a clue on why so many of these massive banks are collapsing. I'll talk to him about that and about why Vivek Ramaswamy, the Republican presidential candidate, is actually wrong about the national debt. We've been hearing a lot of good things from Vivek Ramaswamy lately, but some of the comments that he made about the national debt and our GDP, I think, deserve a reckoning. We'll talk about that with John Miltimore this morning. It should be interesting. And at 7:51 this morning, did you see that a panel in the state of California actually approved reparations? We're talking about billions of dollars of reparation money to black residents in the state of California. Oh my God, that state is going to go bankrupt. I saw Scott Baio announce, this is like the meme that I saw that was shared on Instagram by Fox News. Did you ever think 10 years ago that you would say something like that? A meme on Instagram shared by Fox News that apparently Scott Baio has decided that he's moving out of California. He doesn't want to have to pay reparations to people who were never never had ancestors that were slaves either, I guess. And protesters shut down the New York City subway system over the weekend over the death of Jordan Neely. We discussed that on Friday, but some of the protest videos that come out look like New York City is absolutely in chaos. Democrat-run cities and states are being mismanaged, but that's just any old Monday, isn't it? At 8 o'clock this morning, I was kind of shocked to see the comments by actor Richard Dreyfuss, who slammed the Oscars' new diversity rules. Yeah, the Jaws star came out and said that he thought that while it's an art form film, and a form of commerce. It makes money, but it's an art. No one should be telling me as an artist that I have to give in to the latest, most current idea of what morality is. That liberal curmudgeon comes out against wokeism? Now that it affects him, he has a different opinion about it. Isn't that just about how it works? Isn't that how it always is? Oh, they're all for supporting progressive causes until it affects them. Oh, and then when it affects them negatively, and then all of a sudden they've got a bone to pick with the new left's insane radical. There on the commercial on accident. Sorry about that. I was just trying to get us prepped. There's a million things to be done, and I'm pushing a billion buttons back here. Give me $1 of reparations and super chats for every commercial thing that I break that I screw up this morning. At 8:23 this morning, some big news. Tucker Carlson's next moves may be with Elon Musk, but there's a catch. Only if Fox News lets him out of his contract. Yes, we've had a discussion with former Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano about the way that Fox likes to carry out its contracts to the very bitter end. Even when they have let their employee go, they can control what Tucker Carlson says or does professionally for as long as he's in the contract. And guess how long that contract lasts? 2025. Yikes. Yeah, not good news for if somebody wants to be able to report on the next presidential election. We'll discuss that. And JD Tuccille will join me on the show this morning to talk about New York's heavy hand screwing up the legalization of cannabis. He says New York's heavy hand keeps illegal marijuana and tobacco dealers in business. High taxes and heavy regulations, maybe you ought to slow down, Austin, are as effective as prohibition at creating black markets. JD Tuccille from Reason Magazine will join us this morning at 8:30 a.m. Thank you for that. Also, let's give a big shout out this morning to my assistant, Dual Lauderdale, who's here with us today. If you see him in the chat this morning, make sure you say hello. He's been giving us a little bit of a helping hand, and we're super grateful for that. One more round of applause for Dual Wayne over on Rumble. If you're watching us this morning on Rumble, make sure you click that like button. We're super grateful for you over there. We're also streaming on a brand new social network called Spreely app, and we are streaming that live as well to a brand new audience to continue to grow and spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. If you're watching us over on YouTube as well, make sure you click that like button, and let's get this party started. Are we ready? Are we ready? Yeah, Austin, you're late. We need to go ahead. Time to catch up. Okay, what do we know about the event in Texas? The gunman who killed 8 people and injured 7 others before being shot dead by police at a Texas outlet mall has been identified as, and I'm going to say his name, and I understand that there are people who disagree with that. I am not convinced that not saying his name is going to prevent people from doing this in the future. His name was Mauricio Garcia. I also happen to believe that his name is actually important to this case. He was 33 years old. Dallas home that was linked to Garcia's parents was searched by police on Saturday night following the massacre outside the Allen Premium Outlets. These officials also probed a motel room where the suspected shooter had booked an extended stay. Now, this gentleman did not, I say gentleman, I will call him a man, if that. Garcia did not have a serious criminal history and was working as a security guard, though it's unclear where. The officials are now investigating any possible ties between the suspect and radical beliefs after he was found wearing a patch on his chest that suggested white supremacist or neo-Nazi leanings. We're all going to be very curious to see what the patch on his chest was. I have seen some of the photographs of the shooter's body, but I was not able to see because it was blurred out. I was not able to determine what the patch was on his chest. My guess is like what, a Pepe the Frog. That's going to be what's going to link him to white supremacy. But that's why I think that this shooter's name is interesting in this, because I'm reading the Wall Street Journal article as well this morning on this one, and they actually went with the headline that the Texas shooter is officials probe Texas mall shooters possible link to white supremacy. That was the headline that the Wall Street Journal went with. Possible links to white supremacist ideology, according to law enforcement officials with knowledge of the probe. That's the big story. Not the murder itself, but the fact that a Mauricio Garcia, interesting name for a white supremacist, and I'll be curious to see the outcome of this. Of course, we know what will happen if he was linked to white supremacy in any way, even tangentially. We will hear about this shooting for the next several weeks, possibly the next several months. If, however, though, the ethnicity of the shooter supersedes the possible links to white supremacy, what do you think is going to happen? This shooting will get memory hold, and we won't be discussing this at all in the next few weeks, just like they do when events don't go well for the left. For example, the event that occurred in Nashville at the Christian school that was shot up by the transgender individual, that one got memory hold pretty damn quick. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. We love to hear from our listeners this morning. And I actually really agree with my buddy Chris Morrill over the live stream. He says, it feels like we're having one of these mass shootings every other day now. Something's got to give. I agree. Absolutely. But I have to say that I agree also with what Megyn Kelly had to say. Mediaite.com was reporting on her comments, her reactions to the shootings in Allen, Texas. And she says that on Twitter, she says that Kelly claimed gun control proponents will never succeed against the Second Amendment. So it's time for them to abandon that goal and look at other ways of curbing gun violence. Megyn Kelly says, serious cue for gun control advocates. You failed to effect change. Please face it, you can't do it, thanks to the 2A. We're all well aware you don't like the fact, but fact it is. What's next? We must stay here sad, concerned, lamenting. Could we possibly talk about other solutions? Mental health interventions, Megyn Kelly says. Something real, not the BS we now do. Greater willingness to lock people up with protocols in place for civil liberties. Maybe like what Donald Trump had said, take the guns first, due process later. Not a fan. She says fortification of soft targets, coordination of media response to not lionize shooters. I don't like this whole idea of coordination. Pause, Austin. Before I analyze deeply and Megyn Kelly's comments, let me finish them before I rip them apart. She says we need a mental health facility that is secure but still humane enough that a loving parent would send her kid there, for one. Right now, parents who know they're raising the next school shooter have next to no recourse. Honestly, that last part really strikes true for me. It's absolutely important for us to pay attention to these details. Barney Stiles says that the Allen shooter is La Raza, and journalists are too dumb to know there are other types of racial extremists besides white supremacists. Yes, but Barney, you've actually taken 10 minutes to research and know the difference between these kinds of groups and gangs. See, for them, you got to understand, if it bleeds, it leads. But if it's even there's only one thing that actually supersedes the rule in the media of if it bleeds, it leads. And that one thing is white supremacy. If the media, it doesn't matter how many bodies there are, if there's white supremacy to be discussed, the media is going to go with that. As you can see from the headline from the Wall Street Journal, it's not about the shootings, it's not about the victims, it's about officials probe Texas mall shooters possible link to white supremacy. That's the story. Right? It has nothing, motives aside, all this stuff. That is the headline that the Wall Street Journal went with. This is supposedly like a right of center news magazine. And even they did it. Why? Because they know it sells. They know that that's what's going to get clicks. Right? A lot of times too, we like to blame the media for things, but let's just not forget that we get the media that we pay for. And what media do you pay for to watch? Right? The media that you watch is the media that you get. And that's an important point in all of this one. So just know that people love this stuff. They eat it up. They love these kinds of headlines, and that's why they put it up there, because that's what gets people clicking. Also, there was another incident out of Texas that was a head scratcher. 7 people were killed near a migrant shelter after being struck by an SUV in Texas. 7 people are dead after a deadly car incident in Brownsville, Texas on Sunday morning. A driver allegedly rammed his SUV into multiple people near the Bishop Enrique San Pedro Ozanam Center. This is a shelter for homeless and migrants. And 11 people were transported to a local hospital with injuries ranging from serious to minor. I can't play any of the video of this kind of stuff because it's just so graphic and insane. But people were, speculating online about the reasons for this one. People were claiming that this was deliberate. However, I have not been able to confirm or find any sources that have been able to prove that this person did this on purpose. And it looked as if the person who did it was a migrant themselves. So we're waiting for more details on that scenario down in Texas. But Texas had a really bad weekend. And don't watch the video if you're easily offended, or if you're just easily, if you're sensitive, because I watched it so you don't have to. It was absolutely brutal, and it appears to me as if the driver was actually drunk, and that's what happened. But I would like to hear your thoughts on this one if you have seen that story at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We got a really great text message from a listener who sent in a long text this morning. I won't be able to read the entire text of this, but he was talking about looking at root causes. Stop looking at inanimate objects. Start looking at the social, political, entertainment culture, and how it all has led to the increasing amounts of violence in areas most tightly controlled by ideologies approving of the cultures. Yeah. It's not the guns, because we've had guns in this country for a very long time, but these mass shootings are a relatively recent phenomenon. And there's something that we're going to have to examine in terms of the cultural background that we're operating in right now. Chris Morrill says, yes, that lots and lots of crazy folks out there doing their thing. Yeah, absolutely. Andy Maidment this morning. Good morning, Andy. Nice to see you. He says, remember the self-defense shooting in Florida? They caked him white Hispanic. Yes, I remember that white Hispanic meme that went around. Very funny. I saw stuff on Twitter, says Studio 314, saying the guy was a white supremacist. LOL. Pretty good trick, seeing as he was Hispanic. That will be an interesting one. And again, like I said, if there is no actual link to white supremacy, they will stop talking about this shooting in no time. If there is any link whatsoever, if they find that he liked a YouTube video by Nick Fuentes 7 years ago or whatever, that's all the evidence that they're going to need, and they'll be talking about it for months and months and months. Doug H says, good morning to everyone except spring allergies. They can go away anytime now. I know. I've been... No, it's terrible.
No, God, please, no!
Good morning to Fed Up Kentuckian, who's joining us over on Rumble today, as well as One Patriot Listener One. Nice to have you here this morning. Give them all a big shout out. Our Rumblers have been growing the network over there like crazy. We appreciate you very much. Make sure you click that like button over on Rumble. I see we got 21 people watching now over there. Can we get 10 likes? Half of y'all just give us a like, that would be great to help us spread the message of freedom here in the morning on a Monday. Boy, it does feel like a Monday, though, doesn't it? I'm looking forward to talking to John Miltimore here in just a few minutes about the banks on the edge of collapse. Yeah, the economic chaos, another situation that we need to discuss. Have you seen the discussion going on between the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and the White House? Apparently, Janet Yellen has actually come out and said something reasonable for once. She says that in regards to President Joe Biden's threat to increase the debt ceiling unilaterally, that would actually cause a constitutional crisis. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, has actually threatened to increase the debt ceiling without approval from Congress, meaning that Congress, who has the power of the purse, would be unilaterally, he would do an end run around Congress and their constitutional prerogatives to control the purse strings. And the president, in order to avoid a financial crisis in this country, would invoke the 14th Amendment, which claims, of course, that all public debts are valid. This was a post-Civil War amendment in order to ensure that the debts of the Civil War would be paid for, and, of course, has been expanded over time in order to grant government more authority, to grant branches of the government which did not initially hold any powers of the purse the ability to spend outside of the approval of Congress. How do they do it? How do they get away with it? Well, you all know it's the Federal Reserve, and John Miltimore, who's going to be joining us, he's the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education, is going to talk to us about his article that he wrote on a new Federal Reserve report that holds a clue on why so many of these banks are collapsing. The conventional wisdom is that banks simply need to be regulated harder, right? But a report from the Fed's Board of Governors suggests banks are already struggling to navigate a labyrinth of federal rules and regulations. We'll talk about all that and more, but my throat starts to get hot when I talk for 25 minutes straight without a break. I'm going to go take a little commercial break, get a little bit of water, and I'll be right back with John Miltimore when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're here. You made it. I know. Limping out of bed. Oh, God. Feeling sluggish today. I don't know about you. Had a good weekend. Hope yours was good as well. Had some friends over for a little bonfire at our house, which was nice. A little bit of rest and relaxation, but mostly just working outdoors in the garden. Can you notice I get a little bit of sun? Huh? Yeah, very nice. Yes. I'm glowing, as my wife has said. Glad to have you here. Smash that like button if you're enjoying the show so far. We've got lots of great content and, of course, absolutely terrific guests. One of my weekly regulars, A1 top-notch guest, to talk about the state of our economy, John Miltimore, the managing editor of the Foundation of Economic Education's website, is joining us now. Good morning, John. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, good morning, AP. I got to get some of those sun tanning tips from you to get that color.
Thanks so much for tuning in here with us and for joining us on the weekly. We appreciate you, John. I've been very concerned about my market portfolio over the last few months. My wife and I have been shifting our strategy away from like our active managing of stocks over towards looking at getting more solid investments like gold and things like that into our portfolio because we're just tired of all the rockiness. I'm not a financial expert or an economics expert. I probably know more than the average bear, but I just can't for the life of me understand what the hell is going on with the banks in this country. Why are so many banks either collapsing or on the edge of collapse in this country, John?
Well, there's no one reason, but the Federal Reserve has a lot to do with it. And I think if you look, the primary reason is like the whiplash we've seen over the last few years with interest rates. When interest rates got really low, a lot of these banks loaded up on Treasury securities, which looked like a good deal at the time. And then you fast forward a couple of years, that all those Treasury securities have taken a bath. They're down 30-40%. So that put them in a bad spot. But that's not the only factor, and that's something I wrote about in a recent article. The Federal Reserve admitted in a recent report that these banks are really struggling under the labyrinth of regulations that they have, including some of this stuff. Like if you look, it's really like the ESG style. Why are banks so concerned about like climate change, in why are they so like social equity? These are things that are kind of written into the rules and regulations. The postmortem on SVB is pretty clear. They were spending tons of time and money on consultants and things trying to make sure they were in compliance. They weren't focused a lot on risk, right? And that should be the bank's number one concern. Like, you have your money and you have your clients' money, and you got to make sure that's protected. And they were not focused on that. So these regional banks, you talk about investing, don't have regional banks. Again, this isn't official advice. I'm not a financial expert either. But if you look, regional bank stocks hit an annual low here last week. There's a lot of concern. I don't think First Republic will be the last regional bank we'll see to go under.
So I'm reading the Wall Street Journal this morning, and it says banks are in the grips of an investor crisis of confidence. The First Republic Bank's failure demonstrates why lenders are vulnerable to a loss of faith. So it's the animal spirits, they say, John.
Yeah, I haven't seen that article. Like, there is something to this. Like, first, all these banks. This is a point I think many people overlook. All these banks could have been rescued without the intervention of the federal government. Like, they still had value. Like, there was no reason. Like, there would have been a bidding war to decide, okay, who's going to do it. But because of these bailouts, what they're all doing is waiting to see, okay, we can get it, but we're going to get it at an even better cost right now, right? Because if you look in the last one, I think First Republic, there's about $10 billion of FDIC money that came from that, right? Like this is so if you could save $10 billion on your bid, like I think it was JP Morgan, which bank scooped up First Republic? I think it was Morgan Chase, right? Anyway, they got a screaming deal on it, and that would be happening in all these banks' cases. You don't need to have the taxpayers on the hook for these things. There would be, they'd be buying these other banks would be buying these assets anyway.
So why do they do it? Why do they do it, John?
Well, again, like when you say why do they do it? Who are we talking about? Are we talking about the banks or the government?
The government.
That's the question. Here's something like I've thought a little bit about this, and I've talked to people who've thought a lot about it. Okay, like there's people, professional economists I've talked to. There seems to be almost an effort to sort of consolidate the banking industry. Everything, and if that's not a concerted effort, it's certainly happening by the incentives that we're putting in place. Because by ensuring all these deposits now for people that are putting their money in banks, for some banks but not others, why would you put your money in a local community bank? Because you're not safe there. That bank goes under, you're not going to get bailed out. It's only these bigger banks that are becoming the too big to fail banks. And what this is going to mean is we're going to see a mass consolidation of banking, which has already happened. If you looked at the number of banks in the country today versus what it was 25 years ago, 50 years ago, it's the number of banks is declining rapidly, and this is going to speed that around, really speed that up. And I think part of it is when we get fewer financial institutions, it's going to be a little bit easier to control those financial institutions. And I have some real concerns about the financial sector right now. I don't think we're through this. I think the next year is going to be a really, really rocky one. I hope not, because like you, I'm looking at my portfolio. I want things to get better. You brought up gold. It is something we have an article that we have scheduled on gold. Why young people especially should give gold a look. If you look at the performance of gold over the last, I don't care if you go 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, all you had to do is have your money in gold. You wouldn't have had to been playing with options on stocks. You wouldn't have to be doing anything. Gold has been just boom, 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 boom. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, exactly. Which is really a great segue for me. Very briefly, John, if you don't mind, I just want to give a quick plug to my friends over at Lear Capital and let you know that if you are interested in getting into the gold game, make sure you visit our website at learaustin.com. That's learaustin.com. You can be like Scrooge McDuck over in the picture that I've got on the screen right now and sit in a pile of gold and hoard it up while everybody else goes bankrupt, and then everybody will want your gold. Visit learaustin.com. Get your free gold and silver information packet at learaustin.com. All right. Well, John, I didn't just bring you on here to sell gold, but I do appreciate that little plug there, giving that time for the plug.
Send me the link after the show, because I got to get gold in my portfolio. I don't have it. So
I will. And by buying from Lear Capital, you're actually helping to support the show. So I'd be grateful if you do buy it from us. And the nice thing is about them is that you can sell it to them tax-free. They'll buy it from you. So if you ever do want to sell it, you can sell it right back to them.
nice.
All right. So moving on, I want to talk to you a little bit about the national debt here for just a moment, John, because I know that it's something of concern to liberty lovers like ourselves. I was reading this article over the weekend on Reason Magazine about Vivek Ramaswamy, who's been saying a lot of good things that I really like. In terms of the national debt, he says that the way to fight the national debt is to grow. We have to grow our way out of the national debt. But he never said anything about cutting spending. Very unpopular for politicians to talk about cutting spending. I know from experience, dude. Doesn't matter how much you say you're willing to cut. I said I was going to cut the penny plan, although these days it probably needs to be something more like the nickel plan. But no, it doesn't seem like anybody is actually talking about serious solutions to actually fix the debt. Can we grow our way out of this, John?
Here's the thing: if you're serious about economic growth, you got to start cutting, because they go hand in hand. And so yeah, like there is, we know the game with politicians. They all want to talk about, very few of them are serious about controlling spending, especially when you look at where the spending really is. Like when you come to entitlements, nobody wants to talk about cutting entitlements because Americans aren't prepared to have that conversation. You bring up Social Security and people, just freak out. And you know, right now we are like, you look at the Social Security trust, it's going to be depleted in what, 2032 now, 2031. It keeps getting a little closer. So we're going to have those conversations, and it's going to mean spending cuts. I get the politics for a politician are tricky because you have the wrong soundbite. They're going to run nothing but clips saying you're going to take grandma's Social Security. It's going to be a disaster politically. So I get some of the political hesitancy there, but you can't. And to answer your question, no, you can't just grow our way out of this, because if you're serious about economic growth, you need to start cutting federal spending.
What's
And
what's
there's lots
amazing
of
to
places.
what's amazing to me is, I mean, here's the thing, John. Like, when you're an underdog, as I understood it, you want to be able to. You have to kind of say outrageous things, right? You have to do something to stand out from the pack. So when I ran for office, I mean, I ran for president at 35 years old. John, do you think that I thought I was going to be president of the United States? Right. The idea when you do something like that is to get ideas out there, to offer solutions, to attract people to a cause, and to rally people around ideas, and to build a movement, right? But Vivek Ramaswamy, he refuses to engage with a discussion about what you would actually cut, or if there would be any cuts anywhere. I mean, he's running as if he actually thinks he's going to be president of the United States. And I know that this is a political question here, but I mean, like, why be a coward when you're an underdog? You know you're not going to be president of the United States. Why not just say what you actually believe and go out there and campaign for it? Why run like you're actually going to be president of the United States? I know it's a
Here,
political
here.
question, but
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. Especially if you're an underdog, as you say, that has no real chance of winning. But I would say any politician, if they don't have a quick answer for where they cut federal spending, I don't want that person to be president. Like we need people that can answer that question and answer it well. And start with the Pentagon, and go down from there. Start with the Department of Education, which shouldn't exist. All these, so many. It'd be fun. Look at it that way. It'd be fun to rattle off all the things we don't need. It would take a little bit of research, sure, like maybe spend half a day and come up with a great list and talk about these things. A journalist would be shocked when you just go and start rattling off all these things that need to go.
well, and see, that's why I liked the penny plan, and again, at this point in time, it wouldn't really amount to much overall in the grand scheme of things, because I think when I ran for president in 2016, the national debt wasn't even like $9 trillion at that point, right? We're like at what, $27 trillion now from
31 trillion point 31.5.
yeah, at some point we're going to be talking about real money here. But I mean, I guess really the question, because we're looking at right now a constitutional crisis. The president of the United States has actually claimed he might invoke the 14th Amendment to unilaterally raise the debt ceiling. What are your thoughts on that, John?
Oh, I think it's insane. Like, it's one of these. I get why Democrats are angry because this only happens usually, when a Democrat's president and Republicans control one of the chambers. But if you look, I think it was somebody, Tom Emmer, who one of the I think it's the minority whip in the House now. He's a Minnesota guy by me. I have a funny history with him, by the way. But anyway, he had a good point. He said the only serious cuts that come like during these debt ceiling debates. So if you do want to see government cut, this is the kind of the time you have some leverage to make that happen. And you know what? Lawmakers usually come around and get it. And it wouldn't be, beneath Biden to say, you know what? Yeah, we do need to make some cuts here, and say, instead of just going to war with Republicans, he could say, gosh, you know what? Federal spending really is out of control. We probably need to do something about it. And he could do it in a way that doesn't give, Republicans this huge political win, but we need to control spending. It needs to happen. And like this idea that we can just keep on running $1 trillion deficits year after year after year, it can't happen. We're in some serious, we're looking at dire straits here. Need somebody that's going to take the debt seriously. I don't see a lot of people in Washington that want to do that.
Does the debt ceiling, though, and very briefly, for those who are just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to John Miltimore. He's the managing editor of the Foundation for Economic Education. We're talking about the debt ceiling battle that's happening right now. Does it does it help us, John, to have a debt ceiling limit at all? Because you and I know they're going to spend infinity trillion dollars. They're never going to stop spending, and we keep having this political gamesmanship about raising the debt ceiling when we know that they're going to be spending money anyway. It doesn't prevent them from spending any money. It just forces us into this pointless back and forth about possibly closing down national parks and monuments. Because of course they're never going to shut down the things that we want them to shut down, like the IRS or anything like that. They're only going to go after World War II veterans and their monuments in Washington, D.C. Do you think it's important for us to have a debt ceiling?
Well, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. The debt ceiling is not working. We have it, like I said, a $31.5 trillion debt. So
Right.
it's not doing, it's not a ceiling when you just keep making it higher, right? That's not a real ceiling. So no, it's not working as it was intended to. Is it better than not having one? Who knows? You know, like you said, it really turns into mostly theatrics. But if you do look in recent history, this has been the time where there has been significant cuts. The problem is they quickly backtrack. You remember, go back to like the sequester. Remember, they got the great cuts on the Pentagon and a lot of military spending. They got some of those great cuts, and they were there for about 3-4 years. And then Republicans are the ones that kind of said, you know what, we don't need these anymore, and they backed off. So even like the few wins we've had over debt ceiling fights they're kind of transient wins. You know, like they caved, you know, a short time later. So I don't think it's a very effective tool. No.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. John Miltimore, managing editor for the Foundation of Economic Education. John, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners? I know you're rocking a Substack these days. Anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, come on over. I got a good piece this morning on John Brennan appeared in the CIA, you know, scandal. Now there's emails between Morell and John Brennan where they were actually talking about um, the whole, you know, laptop letter that they sent out. The 50 U.S. Intel, you know, officials, former U.S. Intel officials, signed that letter saying that Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, which it was not. But they admit in their private correspondences that they're trying to help Joe Biden win. To me, this is a pretty big deal. Like when you have the CIA admitting to themselves, you know, former CIA spooks that were doing this for purposes they make clear were political. And they literally say in there, like, we're going to try to give Biden the soundbite, you know, during the debate with Trump. So I don't like the CIA meddling in elections overseas. I certainly don't like it over here. So yeah, my Substack The Take has a piece on Brennan today. Check it out, jjmilt@gmail.com, The Take. And check out all our content at fee, you know, fee.org. Most of your listeners probably know our work over there. But we're in the fight for liberty, and I'll tell you, it's never been a more important fight than it is today.
I read fee.org every day to help keep me strong. John, can I ask you a favor real quick before we let you
You
go?
got it.
Would you grab the links to your Substack, all that good stuff that you want us to share, and drop it over in our live streams? If you could just head over to youtube.com/AP for Liberty. Say hi to everybody over there. Drop your links over in the live stream. We've got a bunch of people watching right now. That way people can go ahead and just subscribe. You'll probably get a bunch of new subscribers if you do that. And then my buddy Dwabe Lauderdale will grab it and drop it over in Rumble as well, so people can follow you up on Substack because we really need those links. Okay.
Awesome. I'll drop them here shortly.
All right. Thank you very much, John. Thanks for getting up early and joining us, and for being a weekly guest on the show. And thanks for fighting for freedom. We appreciate you very much.
Appreciate the invite. CAP.
Thank you very much. That was John Miltimore, again, managing editor of fee.org. And I do read it every single day. It's a great website and resource for those who believe in economic freedom. So make sure you check them out. He's going to go ahead and grab those links for you. I got to give a big shout out to Robbie Thurman. Says when you find yourself in a hole, the first thing to do is to stop digging. Thank you, Robbie, for that super chat, brother. We appreciate you so very much, helping us to continue the fight. Cheeky Mare, she commented on the stream, says control spending. She's a Dave Ramsey follower for president. Hell yes, we do like us some Dave Ramsey. Although I gotta say, I like Dave Ramsey, but I think I disagree with him on the credit card thing. The credit card thing, I guess, if you're not a very responsible person, maybe not a good idea to have credit cards, because he's like a credit card hater. But if you're responsible with credit cards and you pay them off, then you can get a lot of points and there's a lot of benefits to them. But yeah, I also do enjoy me some Dave Ramsey. Did you see that Dave Ramsey episode recently where he was talking to those people who were like, almost $1 million in debt. And of course, they work for the government. They were like government officials or something like that. Anyways, very briefly, before I go to a quick commercial break, just want to remind you, us talking about gold this morning with John, visit our sponsor at learaustin.com today. It's a great day to, at a minimum, learn more about investing in gold and silver. Find out great ways to invest your savings with Lear Capital. You can buy gold and silver direct in terms of coins, or you can also invest metals into your portfolio, talking about actual physical metals in your Roth IRA as a tax advantage way to invest in gold and silver. You can call them at 1-800-885-2175. And if you do call them, just say, hey, listen, AP for Liberty sent me, and I just want to say thank you for sponsoring the show because I do love the Wake Up America show. If you call them, tell them that, and they will be super grateful. And of course, it helps to keep us on the air because Lear Capital keeps us bringing you the message of economic freedom and personal liberty, which we believe in. All right, I'm going to go to a very brief commercial break. When I get back, it's time to talk about California's reparations plan. Millions to Black citizens who live in California. Possibly billions of dollars being given away. Guess who's going to pay for it? Californians. Oh my God. We'll talk about that and the protests that have brought NYC's public transport to a screeching halt when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1. You can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2. Most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3. You're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me Pops build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell! This commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. How are you feeling today? Good? Really? I don't know. I'm feeling a little sluggish. I'm feeling a little bit more like Agorizer today, who's like, first coffee, trying to wake up. God, so when I wake up at 4 a.m. and I hear my first alarm, it's like...
How dare you?
How dare you? How dare you, Greta Thunberg? How dare you? And then I hit the snooze button. Are you a snoozer? Do you hit the snooze button? What about you, Duel? Do you do the snooze button? Are you a snooze guy? You're not a snooze guy. You wake up and you stay asleep? Oh, okay, that's what it is. It's like Duel stays asleep. I gotta have that snooze. But we had a storm blowing in through mid-Missouri today, and I think I saw that Chris Morrill was saying it went down to Cape Girardeau. It was blowing pretty hard, so that actually kind of woke me up, and it's a little bit easier. It's nice when you're sleeping that the storm's going on, but then you want it to end when you leave for work, which it actually did, which is sort of nice. So could be worse. Glad to have you here today. Agorizer says, how dare you? Yes, I see.
How dare you?
For sure. Robbie Thurman with a 1/4 second audio delay. Snoozing reduces liberty, says OK Trey. What?
Oh, God!
It's
no,
not true.
God, please, no! No!
Absolutely not true. Good morning, America.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
You guys are cracking me up today. Milton Friedman alarm clock with a free to snooze alarm. Free to snooze. I like it. Very good. Very good. Free to snooze. Glad to have you here this morning. We appreciate you. Cheeky Mare, she has multiple alarms. That's probably, that's what we do. We'd have 2 alarms, and then I hit the snooze depending on what time it is. But I still manage to make it in here every morning for you nice and early. Get the morning show rocking and rolling. Okay, what are we talking about today? This is bonkers, man. California panel approves reparations proposal of up to $1.2 million each for Black residents. Right. But here's the hitch. That's actually making it worse, some activists say, because the number's so low. Activists are demanding more than $200 million at a heated public meeting. Oh my God. California's Reparations Task Force approved recommendations which would give Black residents $1.2 million each as compensation for slavery and discrimination. Good God. That's hilarious. You got to know that if you're a taxpayer in California right now, how you're feeling. Because you know who's paying for it, right? Activists believe, though, that the $1.2 million is nowhere near enough. They've demanded $200 million because some have called the $1.2 million further injustice. Others have called for direct cash payments. Oh, my God. Previous calculations from economists predicted that the reparations could cost around $800 billion, more than twice of California's $300 billion annual budgets. Oh my God. So this is a 9-member committee. They voted on Saturday to approve proposals on how the state can compensate and apologize for generations of harm caused by discriminatory policies. And of course, we all remember how terrible California treated its slaves during the Civil War. Do we all remember the terrible, terrible conditions of slaves in California? What were the conditions of the slaves? Oh, wait, there weren't slaves in California. California wasn't a slave state, was it? It wasn't even a state. Wait a minute. Was it? Was it California? I don't think so. It wasn't a state yet. Just a territory. What year did California become a state? Google. What year did California become a state? Let's play a little trivia. California became a state in September 9th. Oh, it was a state. September 9th, 1850. Let's see. Let's see. Was California a slave state? Okay, here we go. California, free state. Oh, wow. There we go. In a precarious effort to balance the concerns of Southern slaveholding interests and those against slavery's expansion, Congress cobbled together the Compromise of 1850, the series of bills admitting California as a state, and then they had to grant some important concessions to the South while that happened. So, in order for California to become a state, they had to grant some important concessions to the South. Well, there you go. Then we're all guilty by blood. It's blood libel. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. That's just what some person did by sending us the logo for the Lincoln University Law Enforcement Training Academy. And that's all they did. Just that picture right there. I don't know why you sent me that, but good morning to our local Jeffersonians. Glad to have you here. You can text us at 573-319-1586. Jared Pierce says it's easy to make the case for reparations when you balance it with the cost of welfare. Al Johnson said that sad there were mostly Republicans on the committee. Well, that is California. California Republicans are like, it's like conservatives from the United Kingdom. They're like terrible. Check my tweets, Doug. Are they doing DNA tests to prove that they came from enslaved ancestors? You know what? I would think that would actually be an important thing to do because do you remember that episode that we watched of that PBS show, Find Your Roots? And that lady who was like the big communist black activist, turns out that her ancestors rode on the Mayflower and were pilgrims. And it was all one big, Jeopardy sad trombone. Well, not Jeopardy, but Price is Right sad trombone. Thank you. So it's weird out in California, and it's getting weirder. What do you think? I bet you the legislation passes. I bet you that it goes to the legislature and it passes. And honestly, if I'm being real here, I think Gavin Newsom probably vetoes it or does like a pocket veto and doesn't let it pass because let's see, it says the final report is to be sent to lawmakers before July 1st, where it will forecast compensation estimates. The amount of reparations would cost the state were not outlined, but economists predicted it would be around $800 billion. The report suggests that amounts based on what has been lost to specific types of racial discrimination should be paid back to Black residents. So $2,300 per year for over-policing and mass incarceration, $3,366 per year of residents between 1933 and 1977 for discriminatory lending and zoning, $13,000 per year of residents in California for injustices and discrimination in health, $77,000 per person for Black-owned business losses and devaluations is included in the figure. This means a lifelong Black California resident aged at least 71 could receive more than $1.2 million in compensation. Larry Sharp, Maria Crabb says that Larry Sharp is pro reparations. I wonder what he thinks of this. You know what? I'll reach out to Larry and we'll get him back on the show this week and see what he has to say about it. So he probably would say that there does need to be some kind of a means testing. One of our listeners texted in today with a challenge coin. Is one of our locals here. He says, hello, I help with Lincoln Law Enforcement Academy. Each class I give the graduates a challenge coin. These coins are a sign of respect and are given as such. I need a sample so that I can make a mold to cast the coins from metal. Till now, we've been laser engraving brass blanks. It's a 1.5 inch coin. Well, that's interesting. What made you decide to text me about that this morning? I would be curious for our listener over there. But we do love to hear from our listeners over text. 573-319-1586. Cheeky Mare says, my dad's side are Quakers, and they participated in the Underground Railroad. I am not paying reparations. There you go. My great-grandfather was from Missouri, which was, I guess it was a slave state, but only half of the state. It was like below a line of latitude or longitude. I can't remember. It's longitude, right? Below a certain line of longitude in Missouri, slavery was allowed. So like southern Missouri had slavery, and then like northern slavery, Missouri didn't. It was kind of weird. But my great great grandfather fought for the South in the Civil War. So I guess, oh boy, I guess that means I owe reparations, even though I didn't do fuck all to put anybody in slavery. Anyways, have you seen what's happening in New York City with these protests? At least 7 people were arrested in Manhattan on Saturday after shutting down subway service and clashing with NYPD officers while protesting the chokehold death of homeless man Jordan Neely. Let's take a look at some of the video of this stuff. This is pretty wild. You're going to want to take a look at what people are doing in New York City to bring the transportation system to a halt. Take a look at this. So these guys are trying to get off the train. Look, there's NYPD. You're not getting off this train. Okay. Can you hear what they're saying? So here they are. So, okay, this is hilarious to me. So if you've ever lived in New York City, or like if you know anything about transportation in New York City, there's nothing worse than like people who like make you late for your train. Even like the people who throw themselves in front of the train and commit suicide. New Yorkers are like, we hate you. They certainly don't care. It's like, if you're going to commit suicide, please just don't jump in front of the train in New York City. They don't like you. Okay, but these are people who are blocking the train from moving. And what's hilarious to me is it's actually a black man who's trying to get to work, right? He's trying to get to his job. And then look at these. There's a bunch of white people out there that are blocking the black guy in order to protest against racial injustices. You can't make this stuff up. And then, but to me, is just hilarious is that you got this woman standing there lecturing him about the train transfer. Hold on, listen to her. Like, you can take the NRQ train for a transfer. It's like, get out of my way, bitch. You can take the NRW for a free transfer, sir. It's like, shut up, bitch. I'm trying to get to work. I know I can take the NRQ. Go to Steinway. Hey, look at that. See the dude, see the gay guy in the back there with the Che Guevara shirt? That's how you know he was gay. So see his beard right there? The funny thing is about the gay guys wearing the Che Guevara shirts is that Che Guevara would have had them murdered for being degenerates. Anyways, but here's the thing. Conservatives who are still backing the blue in 2023, it's a cope. Because look what the NYPD is doing. Watch the cop in this one here. Look at this. He's not doing jack. He's. You can't get off the train. Like, let me off the train. Like this, these people should be arrested for kidnapping. Right? They are preventing this person from being able to leave.
They lynching us out here, bro.
They lynching us out here, bro. They lynching us out here, bro.
They are lynching us out here, bro. They are lynching us out here. I understand. They lynching us out here, bro.
He doesn't understand. You gotta explain it to him.
Bro, niggas, you don't have to explain to niggas, my nigga. Fuck it. Don't explain to niggas, my nigga.
Yeah, and it continues on. Take a look at this video here. Look at this. And of course they got they pulled a Jordan Neely, started getting violent on people there in the subway. Take a look at this. This is a city in the United States, okay? This isn't like... This isn't in Russia. This isn't in the Mideast. Nice. How are you not getting arrested? You're assaulting an officer. Look at him here, blocking the train. Dude, the third rail is right there. Just give him a little bit of electricity as a treat. Just as a treat. Look at him. There's the gay guy with the Che Guevara shirt.
Why are you touching her?
Look at these guys. Why are you touching her? Get out of my way.
Why are you touching her? Why are you touching her? Why are you touching her? Why are you touching her?
Why are you touching her? Because she's under arrest. Dude, NYPD, you guys need more backup. You need more officers. I'm just saying, it's not it's not working. Look at this. So the third rail, for those who aren't familiar with the subway, the third rail is the one that's the covered rail over there. And the rail it's underneath this little pad. You can see over back in here. That's the one that generates the electricity for the train lines right there. And all they would have to do is touch that line right there, and then no more protest. Yeah, Quest Fanning, our Brooklynite there, says that when they say the delay is due to a sick passenger, it's code for someone catching the tricks. Yeah. Good morning, Jeremy from Jefferson City, Missouri. Great to have you here, brother. We appreciate you tuning in today. Nice to see you. Good to see you. Charlie Kirk responding to AOC. AOC tweeted, despite what Fox News wants you to believe, being afraid of an unarmed person is not a reason to kill them. We should never accept a society where such a rationale becomes normal, especially when powerful incentives exist in politics and media to keep people afraid of each other. Well, she would know, is because, of course, if you go back in her timelines, you can see tons of that. Charlie Kirk responding, no one intended to kill Jordan Neely, you hysterical hack. It's okay, Charlie. You can say bitch. Literally, no one is advocating for that. Penny and the other men were restraining Neely until the police arrived. Your rhetoric is begging for a race war and more fiery but mostly peaceful protests. Or is that the point? Yes, thank you, Charlie. Maria Crab says, God, I hope this isn't going to mean another meeting about race at work. I won't go into a city to help poor people in Baltimore because if a black person attacks me, I'm supposed to take it and ask for more. That's true. Cheeky Mayor says, I will never live in this big of a city, trapped in an underground tube with crazy people. Yeah, no, I totally get it. I completely agree with you. What do you think? Send us a text, 573 319-1586 is the text line, and we are open to your thoughts. Again, 573-319-1586. Todd, Minnesota, over on Rumble says AOC is an idiot. Yes, quite obvious this morning. Doug H. with all the real questions over there, the right questions, says, is this a trolley problem or stop the trolley or run over a bunch of protesters? Very funny. Doug. It's going to get us in trouble. It's going to get us demonetized. It's going to take us down, which means that since we can't monetize this video because of all the conversations that we're having right now, why don't you do us a favor and drop a little money in the tip jar just like Robbie did? Why don't you? Why don't you? Why don't you? Drop us a brief little tip. $1, $2, $5, $150,000, $1.2 million for reparations for Austin Peterson. For having to get up so early every morning, I demand reparations. You can make a quick little donation as a super chat over on YouTube or on Rumble to help us spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. Because guess what? All these conversations we had this morning, mass shootings in Texas, reparations in California, guess what? We're not going to be able to monetize these videos. So do us a favor, if you wouldn't mind, and just toss a couple bucks in the tip jar to help us to even that out. We'd be super grateful. All right. What else have we got in the kitty here for the discussion today? All right. I do want to get into the Richard Dreyfuss diversity standards. Maybe I should do that now just because it's along these same sort of lines and stuff like that. I do have a George Stephanopoulos video talking about a poll between Biden and Trump that I want to get to in a minute, but I don't have time right now. So let's do this real quick. Jaws star Richard Dreyfuss slams the Oscars' new diversity rules. Yeah, Hollywood's new diversity rules are making one actor sick. You've got to hear this. So apparently Hollywood is instituting new rules in order for a movie to be considered for the Oscar for Best Picture. I'm looking forward to your responses to this. In terms of the new inclusion standards, actually, you know what? I can pull the clip of what Richard Dreyfuss has to say about it. Now, Richard Dreyfuss, of course, a lifelong far-left progressive liberal, donates to liberal causes and things like this. But now progressive policies might actually hurt his career. Well, I don't know how much of a career he really has anymore, but I mean, now progressive policies might actually harm him. These far-left social justice warrior progressive policies, the woke policies of the left, might impact him And so now he's got something to say about it. So what do you have to say, Richard Dreyfuss? Let's take
Starting
a
in
listen.
2024, films will be required to meet new inclusion standards to be eligible for the Academy Awards for Best Picture. They'll have to have a certain percentage of actors or crew from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. What do you think of these new inclusion standards for films?
They make me vomit.
Why?
Because this is an art form. It's also a form of commerce, and it makes money, but it's an art. And no one should be telling me as an artist that I have to give in to the latest, most current idea of what morality is.
Starting in 2024.
See, pause for just a moment. Because isn't the whole masterpiece cake decision and stuff about his artistic abilities being taken over by far left progressive activists who want to force him to bake the cake, as they say?
How dare you?
Yes, I think. But if you're a Christian, now here's the thing: the left, of course, wants these rules to apply to the right, right? The California reparations. I'll bet you, if you ask Richard Dreyfuss about the reparations, he'd probably be like, "Oh, yes, that's a good idea, right? Because it affects somebody else, or he's so rich that it doesn't matter, right? Or he can take his money and move it to the Grand Caymans so that he doesn't have to get taxed for it." But in regards to the far left policies they apply to the right, oh yeah, no problem there. As long as you apply, the Christian baker has to bake the cake because he's a bigot. But nobody's going to call him a bigot for refusing to perform his art in a way that the left finds admirable? It makes him vomit. Oh, it makes him vomit. Yes, these new rules that will be implemented by the Oscars will force directors, casting directors, executive producers, and others to hire diverse cast and crew. So that means, I don't know if you saw this, somebody had generated used artificial intelligence to generate a new Adolf Hitler movie starring Will Smith as Adolf Hitler. And I have to say, the Netflix adaptation of that is going to be lit. And there was this big controversy just a few weeks ago. And I was going to talk about it, but I didn't have time. It was where people at Netflix were upset about the whole dust up about the new Cleopatra show that they have on Netflix. I haven't seen it yet, but they're talking about how people were attacking the Netflix special for blackwashing history, because for some reason, I don't know why, I guess there's some kind of there's a lot of black nationalists who have been advancing this theory that Cleopatra was black. Yo, I got news for you. Cleopatra was Greek, you dumb fucks. Excuse my language. Sorry. How dare you? Thank you. Yes, you dumb idiots. How's that? Cleopatra was Greek. She wasn't black. What are you talking about? Not everybody who lived in Egypt was black. You guys, you got to learn your history here. Jesus. These are the people who want to be in charge of everything. Met Dreyfuss in L.A., says Joni Rankin, before he became the hateful liberal that he is now. Okay, Trey with a comment. And Frank, played by Chris Rock.
How dare you?
How dare you? How dare you? Anyways, Dreyfuss, he famously played Matt Hooper in the horror film Jaws, claimed that the standards were legislating people's feelings. Oh, really? Oh, really? Very funny to hear you saying that, Hooper. We're going to need a bigger boat. What are we risking? Are we really risking hurting people's feelings? You can't legislate that, and you have to let life be life. And I'm sorry, but I don't think that there is a minority or a majority in the country that has to be catered to like that. Bull stuff, bull. We know that you believe that. It's when it affects you, of course, that's what do you do? All right, wait a minute. Let's see. Let's see. Richard Dreyfuss on getting rid of the U.S. Constitution. Let's hear what Richard Dreyfuss has to say about that topic. Hold on. Let's go back to our Twitter weirdness scene. Let me pull this up for you. We're doing this on the fly. Here we
A
go.
lot of people that basically are talking about junking the Constitution. That's what I'm hearing, right? A lot of people are saying this document is outdated. This document is something that's not needed anymore. And basically we want to have some kind of whole new thing that basically replaces this failed experiment that was America, which is frankly all lies anyway, what we've been taught in history and so forth. So I kind of know what your reaction to this, I think, is, but just tell me what your reaction to that is.
Well, it's a bunch of hooey. It's just crap. And someone talks to me about needing to replace the Constitution with what? With what? Don't talk to me about it needs to be replaced until you've got something to talk about, like something better. And they don't have anything. No one has bettered the Constitution. No one has bettered the structure of the federal government. No one has bettered or negotiated a way for the states and the federal government to work together. And it certainly can be improved upon. Yes. But to junk it? Only an idiot would say that. And I mean, a truly retarded idiot.
Oh my God, dude, you guys say that is not, hold on, wait, Austin, wait, you're trying to go to AP chat. There we go, with the chat screen on there. That was not politically correct. You know what I'm going to have to say? Canceled. Richard Dreyfuss is canceled. It's over. Moral panic. Panic on the streets of London. All right. I have to say that definitely made me laugh. I guess Richard Dreyfuss is starting to drift a little bit right, says our friend, who was it? Barney Stiles. Good morning, Barney. Nice to see you, brother. To be fair, Dreyfuss had been drifting right for years. Yes, it's true. Todd in Minnesota says, they say Jesus was black too. Very funny. Yes, that's true. Black Jews. There are such a thing. Nelson65 says, according to some, we're all black because we all supposedly came from Africa. Very funny. We all are just whatever we identify as because this
America
is America.
Is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
Yeah, for sure. And our friend Dwayne Lauderdale says it's nonsense. The creators are more inclined to recast the race of established characters rather than create originals. Racist in the sense that they can't imagine original non-white characters. Very funny and interesting. Thank you very much for that insightful content, Duel. We appreciate you for that. Al Johnson says we can go back to the caveman mentality. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Drifting reasonable, more like, says Tolly Owens. Richard Dreyfuss as a medieval king. We're going to need a bigger moat. Very funny. All right, what else have we got on the show today? We've got our friend JD Tuccille. He's got a great new article out in Reason Magazine that I'm looking forward to having him share with you. JD Tuccille says that New York's heavy hand keeps illegal marijuana and tobacco dealers in business. Why are we talking about New York so much these days? It's because it's an absolute poop show. But the non-poop show is the Wake Up America show. Stay tuned and we'll be back with more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Donald Trump and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the Roaring Twenties brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every $1 we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Do you have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Thanks so much for tuning in here. Hope you're in a good mood today. If not, we're going to get you there with some of the best liberty commentary in talk media. Yeah, I used to be on talk radio, but I decided it was time to go out on my own and to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty in a capitalistic way. I think that makes perfect sense. Some people don't understand capitalism, though. Like a former state that I used to live in, New York's heavy hand keeps illegal marijuana and tobacco dealers in business. Now, I don't smoke marijuana or smoke tobacco, but I believe in America, everybody has a God-given right to do what they please with their bodies, provided they harm no one else. But now that we have legalization sweeping across the country, legislators are essentially enacting de facto prohibition, argues my next guest. He's a writer at Reason Magazine and a hard-ass desert anarchist, JD Tuccille, joining us right now. Good morning, JD. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I know it's bright and early out there out west, so we appreciate you getting up so early to have a conversation with us. JD, make your case here. New York's heavy taxes and regulations are basically prohibition, eh?
It really is. I mean, it's weird. You have the governor's office last week announcing a crackdown on dealers of marijuana in the state of New York. And you're looking at this, and I'm thinking, I thought marijuana was legal in the state of New York. I mean, they have stores selling this stuff. And the thing is, it's kind of legal. They legalized it, but they've got all of 5 shops in the entire city of New York selling marijuana. They've been licensed. They jumped through the hoops. They're paying by the regulations and paying the taxes. And those 5 shops are competing with something like 1,400 illegal, unlicensed retail venues in the city of New York. Not to mention all those dealers who pre-existed legalization. I mean, I remember back in the day, having a guy who you'd send him a text via beeper, and he'd show up at your door with good stuff in tow. It's really, really hard for such a heavily restricted industry, if it's not only illegal, to compete with a pre-existing illegal vendors who don't have to pay the high taxes, who do not have to abide by these ridiculous regulations, who barely exist, in fact. So you end up with a lot of illegal vendors and a governor announcing a crackdown on a legal product, which is just a bizarre sight, but it's inevitable if you only sort of legalize a market.
Man, they're really struggling here. I got to give a quick shout out to our buddy Andy Opperman on the stream. Thanks so much for the super chat, Andy. And it was great seeing you this last weekend at the bonfire here in JCMO. He was wearing his awesome AP for Liberty shirt over the weekend as well, which you can get at apforlibertyshop.com. How's that for a capitalistic venture for you? So Governor Kathy Hochul signed new legislation to increase civil and tax penalties for the unlicensed and illicit sale of cannabis in New York. What does this mean then, JD?
Well, the thing is, they already have an example as to what it means. They could have looked at their own experience with cigarettes. Highest tax rate on cigarettes in the United States is in New York State, and particularly New York City, where it's $5.35 a pack. The whole state just adopted another $1 a pack tax, so it's going to be going up. Going to be super the highest, tax rate in the country on cigarettes. A majority of the market for cigarettes, about 53% of cigarettes in the state of New York, are sold by black market vendors, meaning that they took legal cigarettes and so burdened them with regulations and taxes that they handed a majority of the market to illegal dealers as if it was a drug. If you restrict something, if you make something nominally legal, but you burden it with so many restrictions and such high taxes, you will drive it to the black market as if it was prohibition. They've already demonstrated this with cigarettes. They should know that that will happen to marijuana. And in fact, it has happened to marijuana elsewhere. California went down the same path when they nominally legalized marijuana. Again, burdened it so heavily with regulations and with taxes that they drove a lot of the small vendors and small farmers out of business, handed it to a couple of big companies who are still finding it difficult. A couple of them are actually exiting the state because it's so heavily taxed, so regulated that they cannot compete with the illegal market. It's still more attractive to go to the illegal market, pay less money for the same stuff, and actually get it more easily because there are fewer rules. So it's more flexible dealing, more flexible hours, more flexible everything, in fact. The black market is a free market. It's not always as safe. It's not always as reliable. But once you establish relations, once the market's established, it actually can be preferable to a nominally legal market that is so restricted it might as well be prohibited. And New York should have seen this coming because they did themselves with cigarettes, and California already did this with marijuana.
Yeah, I remember when I was in California once, I was talking to a resident about the legal market versus the illegal market, and they were saying that they still buy stuff off of the streets because the stuff that they get on the streets is just as good, if not better, and it costs less. They don't have to pay the taxes, and they don't have to go put their name on a list or show an ID or anything like that. So it's like, the lawmakers just don't seem to quite understand. And JD, isn't it funny too, the discrepancy between how we're starting to see legislation in states like this where they're legalizing cannabis and they'll actually have more restrictive rules around tobacco, and they're banning cigarettes and banning tobacco. Wasn't there a state that was talking about, actually, like, was it New York, where they're actually talking about banning like cigarette sales outright, or California or something like this? So they legalize weed and then they ban tobacco. It makes no sense.
Yeah, New York's health department is actually polling state lawmakers and community leaders about what would be the level of support for a hypothetical law that would ban cigarettes, all tobacco products actually, in 10 years, or would adopt a New Zealand-style law that says that people who are 14 and older, advancing by 1 year, anybody who's under that age it would be illegal forever to purchase tobacco products. So you would then kind of implement prohibition while allowing those who are currently smoking to continue smoking, with prohibition, 50 years from now, being only those over the age of 64 who will be able to buy tobacco products. New Zealand actually adopted that law last year, where prohibition eases in year by year. So you're basically reintroducing a prohibition after legalizing marijuana because prohibition did not work. And New York's when they had an impact assessment on marijuana and decided that they're going to legalize marijuana, they did that because their own commission looked into marijuana sales and says, you know what, the illegal market hasn't gone away. Prohibition hasn't worked. The stuff hasn't disappeared. It's widely available. We might as well legalize it and have a regulated legal market. So if you legalize marijuana because prohibition did not and could not work, the idea that you're exploring, reintroducing prohibition for tobacco, which is a pretty heavily comparable product, is insane. It means that you're simply going to repeat the same thing over again with a new product. And certainly in 50 years, you'll have an impact assessment saying, you know what, we're scratching our head. Shockingly, tobacco prohibition didn't work. There's an illegal market. Maybe we ought to consider legalizing it. You're going down the same. But no, they refuse to live an experience. And you have to wonder if they're dim or just addicted to prohibitionist policies. I think it's probably a little bit of both.
I agree. It's a little bit of both. That's some good stuff there. We're speaking to J.D. Tuccille. He's a writer at Reason Magazine this morning. We're talking a little bit about the prohibitionist policies of the dictatorial left and right. We are libertarians, after all. J.D., I saw you had a new piece out today over on Reason, and I read it as quick as I could before we got you on the line. Punishing rioters is wise. Bogus sedition conspiracy charges are not. And very briefly, before we talk about that, I do want to say I saw that you have apparently a weekly newsletter called The Rattler. And if you care about government overreach and tangible threats to everyday liberty, this is for you. I just signed up for it. And I want to recommend that everybody who's watching and listening to the show right now, if you're enjoying JD's commentary, sign up for that weekly newsletter. But go through this piece for us, if you wouldn't mind. This is about the Proud Boys being charged with seditious conspiracy charges. You say that is not a good idea. Why?
Yeah, I mean, the Proud Boys and then before them, the Oath Keepers face charges for what they did on January 6th of the Capitol riot. And there's really no doubt that this group of people they picked up engaged in criminal behavior. They rioted, they destroyed property. In a couple of cases, they attacked police officers, they attacked other people. They were trespassing, they were damaging property at the Capitol building. So there's things to charge them with, and they absolutely did. Seditious conspiracy is a charge that dates back to the Civil War. And it was introduced as a means of basically going after guerrillas, so that you'd have something to charge them with that would be a high crime if they refused to lay down arms, as the Confederacy was losing. So it was meant for Mosby and Quantrill. And then you're charging the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers before them under a criminal charge that was meant to go after Confederate guerrillas. It's way over the top when you have criminal charges in place that apply to direct criminal behavior on the behalf of the defendants in the case, especially since they never really proved a conspiracy in this case. They grew in, and even the New York Times, and if you read the coverage from the Times, which is definitely not a establishment questioning publication, the Times points out how they had to draw in the violent behavior of people unrelated to the defendants with whom they only had a tenuous connection, how they never actually demonstrated a conspiracy. It was supposed to be an unspoken agreement. Well, if it's an unspoken agreement, how is it a conspiracy? And how the head of the Proud Boys was not even in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. He'd been thrown out of the city earlier. Now, that doesn't mean these are good people, but it does mean that the seditious conspiracy charge is really a step too far. It's a means of elevating a bunch of thugs who threw a temper tantrum on January 6th to the level of Quantrill and Mosby. And it's a means of letting prosecutors kind of puff themselves up as saviors of the republic, standing against enemies of the state. And that's not what happened. They put down a riot. The rioters should be charged, and they should be face penalties. But we've entered a phase of our republic's existence when criminal charges are being politicized, and they're using seditious conspiracy charges, which under the Trump administration, Bill Barr had proposed using against rioters in the summer of 2020. We all remember those mostly peaceful protests, right, with the flames in the background on CNN reports. But Bill Barr wanted to step beyond charging rioters and charged them with seditious conspiracy, which, by the way, means that you tried to overthrow the country. Means you tried to overthrow the government. And it was ridiculous then. He was called out then, Bill Barr was, by the same people applauding the use of the charges now against the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. And that is because they're politicized charges. It lets those in power, even if they cycle through with elections, lets those in power puff themselves up as saviors of the republic when they're actually just going against common criminals.
Now, JD, do these guys get an appeal here? Because, I mean, seditious conspiracy charges, I mean, sound like pretty serious. I mean, it's not quite, I think, execution level here, but I mean, we are talking about something that sounds, I mean, like life in prison. What are these guys facing?
I mean, you're talking about, well, they already got hit with serious charges. They're facing time for, the attacking cops, everything else they did. So, I mean, they already are going to be penalized for that. Yes, they do get to appeal the charges. They may well have a good claim to it, considering that an unspoken agreement is not generally what's taken to mean to consist, of a seditious conspiracy, an actual plan to overthrow the government. So the judge probably will stretch too far in the case. But of course, there's no way of predicting how the courts will go. But yes, this is going to continue through the appeals process. I don't think there's any doubt that it will continue. It's not over yet.
Man, it's just wild how far they've gone with these protesters, and many of these people have been held without charges for up to a year, I feel like. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us here. I'm speaking to JD Tuccille. He's a writer for Reason Magazine. We've been talking a little bit about prohibition, and we've been discussing the Proud Boys being convicted of seditious conspiracy. But I'd like to talk to you about one other article that you wrote about a week ago, JD, if you don't mind. This is a piece that about abortion, and your headline was "Pro-Lifers Pushed Too Far and Doomed to Abortion Bans." Now, your headline, your subheading was "Americans' opinions are more nuanced than headlines suggest, leaving little room for total bans." Do you want to share with us your thoughts on that, JD?
Absolutely, yeah. These were two bills that went down to defeat, one in Nebraska and the other in South Carolina, which are both conservative states where Republicans, social conservative Republicans, hold for majorities in the legislature, and they hold the governor's office. And by and large, then you would assume that conservative-leaning Republican legislation would go through without much problem. But both these bills failed. And these were essentially outright bans on abortion in states that already have restrictions in place. But even Republicans, even those who call themselves pro-life, when you poll them, have much more nuanced beliefs about what should be allowed. For instance, if you ask people, are you pro-life or are you pro-choice? You get these very black and white answers. I'm pro-life or I'm pro-choice. But when you say, are you pro-life, but also, do you think that there should be exceptions for? And then you say, the wife of the mother, rape, incest. Do you think that perhaps the restrictions should go into place at some point through the trimesters, at X weeks, at 15 weeks, or what have you? Then you start answering yes. You get the same kind of nuanced reactions if you ask pro-lifers. That'll say, "Oh yeah, I'm pro-life, but I'm not comfortable after 15 weeks," or whatever it might be. That doesn't mean people don't have differences of agreement, but it does mean they're not these stark A or B differences. And that's exactly what happened in Nebraska and South Carolina, is that legislatures, and I believe in all cases it was women, said, you know what, this is way too much. This is over the top. How about we go instead of from, at a 6-week ban when women might not even know they're pregnant, how about we go to 12 weeks? And that was actually one of the amendments that was proposed, was voted.
Oh, looks like we just lost JD there. Maybe his phone might have died. Let me try and get him back on that one. I'm going to call him. You might hear the phone ringing. FYI, so we do the way that we set up this phone system is that it runs through the board there. And that means that you'll probably hear the phone dialing right now. Hopefully he will answer. Let's see if we can get him back on the line there. JD Tuccille on the line there. Where you at, JD? Hook us up, brother.
Are you there?
Yeah, you there, JD? Sorry. I don't know what happened, brother.
That was weird. I'm sorry about that.
It's all right. That's what happens when you're live. Please continue your thoughts there.
Well, I'm saying, so I think it was mostly women legislators who said instead of a 6-week thing, maybe we try 12 weeks. It was actually one of the amendments that was proposed. That amendment was voted down, and then the subsequent bill was withheld. When people say I'm, skeptical about abortion, I'm pro-life, or in favor of abortion, I'm pro-choice, in many cases, they're closer to each other than the extreme pro-life, pro-choice labels would suggest. And that is why these bills went down, is that it's not that Americans don't have strong differences of opinion on abortion, but it's that those opinions aren't necessarily so completely at odds as a lot of the polling would suggest. And that the most absolute bans, and those were the cases in Nebraska and South Carolina, really are a step too far. It's more than even a lot of pro-lifers would care to support.
JD, before we let you go, one last little question on that subject, and because we're, I guess, acquaintances, if you will, and you're a regular guest on the show, I'm going to give this to you, sort of set it up to you as a softball rather than try and play gotcha with you on this question. But the reason why I'm asking you this question is because I'm just curious to hear what a pro-choice libertarian would say about this situation that was brought up on Tim Pool's show last week. In regards to it was eventually it was about abortion, but what Tim Pool had asked his left-wing guest, who was pro-choice, was whether or not a pregnant woman should be allowed to smoke black tar heroin. And the guest was like, well, it's her body, she can do with what she wants. But the guest was like, but I don't think that you should be allowed to do that. I don't think that should be legal because you're actually hurting the baby. And then they kind of had him, right. It was a gotcha moment, because it's like, well, wait a minute, you're pro-choice, so I mean, if it's her body, why can't she just do what she wants? I wonder where you come down on that one, JD, because both you and we're both libertarians. We believe in the legalization of drugs. Adults should be able to do what they please with their bodies, including up to and including smoking black tar heroin. We may not agree with it, but pregnant mothers, maybe that's where I draw the line. Maybe that's where you draw the line. What are your thoughts on that issue, JD? That's a tricky one.
Yeah, this is a hard case. That's one that actually comes up pretty often. My wife's a pediatrician. She deals with babies of drug moms a little more frequently than she'd like to, and so it's a real issue. I have to say it's a difficult situation. I think that it's not good, and it probably is something that ought to be penalized, especially the closer you're getting to the quickening heartbeat viability. The various terms that we've used over the years for the idea that the baby can survive outside the womb. I think that this is where the nuance enters into that we were discussing, is that it's generally not an absolute pro-choice up until 5 minutes before mom gets her position, and it's generally not an absolute pro-life, no abortion ever, even if it's a miscarriage kind of situation. Most people don't take them. Most of us end up in the middle hashing out these messy real cases, like a mom taking drugs, which happens way too often. I think it's not good. If you're bringing another life into the world and you intend to bring it to term, now if I have an abortion scheduled for tomorrow is the case, maybe that's going to be a different matter than I plan on bringing it to term and I'm just going to hand over a drug baby to the world at large afterwards. We're in this territory here where we're hashing out difficult issues. And abortion, you know what? It's always going to be hard because of it. We get this kind of a science fiction solution. We don't have that.
So here, yeah,
but I'm uncomfortable with them.
I get it. I get it though, but I mean, I guess, it's issues like this that have always prevented me from jumping over the line into full-blown anarcho-capitalism, because of the problems of the rights of children. And I just felt like Rothbard never really fully articulated these things well. And many anarchists, I have the same problem with. So how do you square, when you say punishment, how do you square that with being, you're a self-described anarchist? What kind of punishment for a mother who would do something like that, be smoking black tar heroin? What kind of punishment could possibly be met out if there is no, no rulers, no laws, essentially? How would you punish something like that in an anarchist society, JD?
I think probably you're going to have somebody representing the rights of the child. It would probably be whoever it was that was representing the rights of a child after birth, because an infant also isn't going to be representing themselves. So who is it who's going to stand up for the mom's kids when they're being abused and they're 8 months old? I think that if you're talking about a baby being brought to viability in the womb, you're then transitioning to the baby having been born, but is now 8 months old and also still has interest to be represented. And if the child is killed then, how do you do you deal with that violation of rights? Because that's a clear violation. And the fact is, I don't have a good answer for you. The child in the womb with black tar heroin. The 8-month-old I know is being murdered or being abused or maltreated in some way. The child in the womb, I mean, if mom says, but I wasn't going to carry it to viability, I wasn't going to deliver the baby, suddenly we're in a different situation than if it does through the plan of deliver it. And we may then eventually have to defer to the mom because we don't know her actual intent. Yeah.
See, this is so tough because
Yep.
I'm tempted by the black and yellow flag, but I just have not reached for it just yet. I'm still on the blue and yellow flag, firmly in the minarchist camp.
I'm gonna raise an old saying, which is that hard cases make bad law, and that's under every system you can imagine.
Yeah, no, it's true. In questions like these, when you talk about a lawyer, someone who's representing them, it does lead me to the next question, which we don't have to dwell too long in anarchist theory, and I know we got to run, but I'm just desperately curious. This is big brain stuff, but who would pay for the lawyer, right? I mean, even as someone who says that taxation is theft, I have to say, well, maybe a little bit in order to pay for the lawyers because, being able to be represented is a positive right. And if you're an anarchist, I would assume that you would reject all concept of the idea of a positive right? Because only negative rights would exist. Please, tell me if I'm wrong here, JD. I'm just curious. But the right to a lawyer is a right to someone else's time and requires the funding of in order to ensure that someone like that fetus who is being protected from the mother who wants to smoke black tar heroin, there have to be some kind of a positive right there. Am I right?
And I also reject positive rights. But I think that what you're asking there is the larger question of who helps the indigent. Because in this case, you're talking about an indigent pre-infant children situation. And that's where we're looking at. If you're talking about a truly free society where there's no positive rights to taxation, what you're saying is that you have faith in people's charitable impulses. They're going to help each other out, that there's going to be some kind of a system in place voluntarily to provide people with representation and counsel. And if you have faith in that overall, I think that adding one more potential category of people who might need representation isn't hard. If you don't have faith in that, then that's the whole issue overall. Then is that you would then think that coercion of some sort is necessary. And the question is, will you come down on? I think people by and large will help others voluntarily. If you believe that, then again, adding another category doesn't become a problem. And if you don't believe that, then you're not going to go with the idea of eliminating the state.
Yeah, I think I definitely don't agree with that. I definitely don't.
Okay.
I mean, I can say I'm 95% of the way there on the train, on the limited government train, but I'm going to get off at the second to last stop on the train and let JD continue on to Anarchy Land. Hey, JD. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Your fellow passengers most of the way. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, JD. Have a great day. Thanks so much for all you do over at Reason Magazine. I'll tell people to sign up for your newsletter on the break. Have a good one.
Take care.
Thank you very much. JD Tuccille, sign up for the Rattler newsletter. You can find more from him over at reason.com. These are really good conversations. Looks like you guys are enjoying it. I know I try not to dwell too much in the theoretical here on the Wake Up America show because I know that I have to keep your attention. And a lot of the times the people who tune into the Wake Up America show aren't necessarily always into the super hardcore stuff. So I try and cater a little bit to everybody. And you know what? I wind up pleasing nobody that way. Well, you can't please everyone and you shouldn't try, but I do enjoy the big brain discussions. So big that my hair would be blowing out of my head. Oh, I got to tell you, man. This morning, the coffee really hit me hard. I've been running to the bathroom, and I tell you, it's a swamp in there, and I'm going to drain it. That's for sure. It's time for us to go. Almost time for us to go. But before I do, I got to do a quick little plug for the AP for Liberty shop. Have you even looked at apforlibertyshop.com? I know some of you are like, yes, I absolutely have gone there, and Austin, I've bought stuff from you. Okay. Well, then this is not for you. For the people who have never been to apforlibertyshop.com, you are missing out. because not only do we have some awesome gear, like the Donald Trump toilet brush that you can get to drain your swamp. Like I'm probably needing right now because it's a bit swampy over there. All right, Austin, I know. You're like, shut up. Okay, well, if you're not into the Donald Trump toilet brush, how about this awesome shirt? We did sell one the other day. Man, I miss the 1970s Pepe shirt. Oh, wait. You're not into that? Man, I miss the 1970s Pepe shirt? Well, maybe you'll be into this. An awesome Don't Tread on Me shirt, ladies shirt. You can find over at apforlibertyshop.com. What, you're not into that? Oh, well, maybe you're into making crude jokes in public. Well, it's not that crude, really, but the Caucasians jersey you can find over at apforlibertyshop.com. Wear your favorite team with pride. Caucasians. Yes, there it is. Native American man just enjoying his favorite sports team. Don't freak out. You can get that look at apforlibertyshop.com. And if that's not up to your liking, our unisex government shirt, yes, for male, female, androgynous, anything in between, you can get over at apforlibertyshop.com. Get your government shirt, government shirt over at apforlibertyshop.com. Check it out right now. We're going to go to a commercial break. When we do, why don't you type in apforlibertyshop.com and check out all the great gear that we've got over there. Remember, shipping is free to all the people in the United States. And if you're one of those people who's like, Austin, I am a monthly subscriber to Wake Up America show, and you're like, hey, I didn't even know that I get 20% off. Yeah, you get a 20% discount if you are a monthly subscriber to the Wake Up America show from the AP for Liberty shop. That's right, courtesy of moi. So if you don't have your discount code for all of our monthly subscribers, hit me up in the DMs, slide into those DMs, and I will give you your discount code just in case you don't know it or forgot. And head over to apforlibertyshop.com. We'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.